So outside of communication, what are some other things an office can do to boost their productivity?
Time is our friend. Time management is the biggest thing that we have for productivity. The way that we set our schedule and the way that we book our schedule makes a difference. So having a productive schedule so that it's set up to be productive, not full, not just full, but productive, which means that we have a mix. It's like a puzzle. We have so many rocks or productive procedures. We have some sand, which is medium-sized production, and then we have some filler, which we have to do just to make do. And so having that productive schedule and managing that productive schedule and making sure it's productively full, an office is unstoppable from a productivity point of view.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode on the Happy Practice Playbook. I'm Mo Jones, and in each episode of the show, you'll hear conversations with dentists, office managers, staff, and specialists who know how to create a happy practice. Today, we're joined by Melinda Heryford, a business management consultant in the dental industry who specializes in helping small to medium businesses and has over 3 decades of experience. Melinda, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mo. Nice to be here. Nice to be having a conversation about how to create a happy practice.
Right? I think you are obviously at the top of many of our lists of getting a happy practice and staying productive as well. You are the creme de la creme, and I'm so excited to be chatting with you today. This is going to be great.
Happy to be here, Mo.
So we start each of our episodes with a fun little statistic. So today's statistic is 86% of employees cite ineffective communication and poor collaboration as reasons for failures in the workplace. Have you seen communication affect productivity and dental practices?
Well, it's fascinating that statistic is staggering, 86%. And, Mo, I've been doing this a long time, and the number one complaint that I get time and time again from team members is poor communication or no communication or disruptive communication. So it is a big issue for the team members. And, I think the people who are attracted to working in dentistry are people. They like people typically as a general rule, and they want it to feel peaceful in the practice. And, without clear communication, clear expectations, people understanding what they're supposed to do when, it really creates havoc, and it creates disharmony.
So as you kind of mentioned as well, I really find it surprising that 86% cite that, especially because I think we just as people, the message of communicating with people, whether it's in your personal relationships or business relationships, is so important. And there's still so much ineffective communication. So with that, do you think maybe the fact that we are just kind of ruled by technology and instant gratification, do you think that impacts this ineffective communication that's going on?
Yeah, the technology is a piece of it for sure. I think that's a part of it. In dentistry, it's really interesting because when they're taking care of patients, I mean, having the technology support them so that they can have good communication. We have a system that we use with our clients. It's called the Game Changer system, and it really is the idea of starting the day on the same page, preparing for what the day looks like for each patient, not only what is happening now at today's visit, but also what's next, making sure that the whole team is on board with that in huddle, and that as they see the patient, whatever those next visits are and what they've done today is very clear. So when you think about digital communication, we use all digital communication to make sure that groundwork is laid, and we have communication devices like even the route slip, for example. And when the team doesn't use the technology, then that is a breakdown, right? So let's say we have that route slip. It says everything that's supposed to be done today and what's next. And the team, when the team's not using that, that's a communication breakdown. And so I think digital supports us, or it can be the death of us if we don't actually use it. And so I think it's people and process. When I think about the disharmony in communication, it's we have to take the ball and pass it to the next team member in the line, with it being absolutely complete. And so when things are incomplete, then it's like everybody's trying to pick up different pieces, and it really is messy, and then one team member will blame another team member, will blame right? That whole process. So I think when systems are what my team and I we work on systems, and we say that 85% of communication breakdown is actually in the process or the system, not with the people. And so we go back to that system and say, what are all the pieces? And is everybody trained up on those pieces? Is somebody missing some of that? And we need to help them. So it really is this beautiful combination of people and process, and everything coming together at the same time.
So with the processes and making sure your people are trained, how do you establish a cadence that people are getting trained in a timely manner without it being too much or too little?
Oh, that's a great question, Mo. That's just a great question, because in dentistry, we do this thing where we hire people with experience, and we typically just go for it, right? We just kind of throw them in there, and we maybe review it one time, maybe, and then we say, hey, we've reviewed that. I had a conversation with a hygienist last week. We have two new hygienists in her practice. She's a lead hygienist. She's like, I reviewed that once with them, right? I reviewed that once. They should know that. And I think that's the piece of it, Mo, is that we expect, if we're the trainers, that we could go through it one time with somebody and they would get it perfectly. But that's not the case. We're dealing with human beings, and the best thing we can do for those people we hire is have that list of expectations, have them know what are their key 3 results that they're there to produce, and which processes will help them produce that, and then train and train and train until they really have it down. I mean, I think that's supportive and loving.
So in that, when we bring on new people and with our establishing team too, is kind of tailoring it a little bit to the way they learn, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's a piece of it, right? Where it's like, who is this person? And do they learn visually? Do they learn auditorily? Do they learn kinesthetically by doing it? And then giving them the support, so that we actually can repeat the learning until they really get it. And so it is understanding who's the person, how do they learn, and then I think, Mo, the big thing is, do we have the resources in the office to actually give them what they need? Because typically in a team, we run so lean, and especially since COVID, we're short 1 or 2 or 3 people per day. I have a mega team, and they have 6 front office people. Well, 3 of them were gone all week last week. That's hard, right? So even if you're
That sounds stressful.
that's super stressful. So I think when I think about it, what we've been doing to respond to that, my team and I, first of all, it's like clarity around expectations. You hear me saying this over and over again. It's only fair that each person knows exactly what's expected of them. I mean, people want to know 2 things: what do you expect, and how am I doing? And so it really is, from a management point of view, it's on our shoulders to make sure they know what's expected and they know how they're doing. And when we get them in place, then looking to see, did they get, do they understand what's expected? Did they get the training? Are they having trouble anywhere? And that takes resources. And so one of the things that I think we all need to consider in offices today is, who is our trainer? How do we make sure that they get the resources necessary? Because I don't care what kind of communicator you are, if we're short 50% of the team, it's going to be a hard day, right? And so I think, that's when I think about, wow, let's make sure we have our systems down. And the new thing that we're doing is we're leaning those systems down to 20% of the activity. So if there's 100 steps, we want to know the 20 steps that will make the biggest difference. And then we're supporting the team in getting rid of 80% of the steps, so that it's lean. We call it plenty and 20. Get things done easily, make sure we're doing what counts, and have it be easier for each team member.
So another question I have, when you're setting expectations to your person, right? That, hey, this is what I expect you to know, and I will give you that communication of how you're doing. Is it important to set an expectation of them that they should be communicating back to you?
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's that system of, we call it the one-on-one system, where we're getting regular time with a team member. Like every 6 weeks, their supervisor has at least 30 minutes with them, so that we can say, how's it going? How are you doing? What's going well? What are you challenged by? So that we're having regular touch-ins there. And then I love another system, which is, I call it LBs and Ts. So at the end of the day, what went best? What did you like best about the day? And next time, next time or tomorrow, what will we do differently so it's a better day? Right. And so I think these are all communication systems, right, to keep communication open. And I think that's an angle of checking in, not only checking in, but communication is two-way. If we're not having it go two-way, then it's going to suffer.
So I think maybe some of our listeners and our practice managers, I think the thought is, maybe when we open up that communication to get that feedback from our people, that we might be getting more negative than positive feedback. So how does someone overcome that?
That's great. Yeah, that's the reason they don't ask, right? They don't ask because they're afraid it might be negative. Yeah. Wow. That's a muscle, isn't it, Mo? That's a muscle. I have a girlfriend that specializes in courageous conversations, and I love that. I love that term for it, courageous conversations, because I think it's exactly why managers don't say, how's it going? Because they're afraid, and dentists and owners don't say, how is it going? How are you doing? They're afraid of the negative that might ensue, and they don't know how to handle it. It's like oncoming. And I think out of everything in communication, I think that piece of developing some courage to say, what's your experience and how are you doing and what's working and what's not working, that muscle will build, it builds the conduit of relationships. So when I think about communication, I think about it like a conduit. And when we first start our relationship with somebody, it's kind of really teeny because we have no trust. We have no trust. And then each conversation we have with them that's like, could be dicey, could be tough, but a challenging, it like builds trust, right? It builds strength in the relationship. And the more we can handle dicey conversations as well as good conversations, it just builds this amazing conduit. So the bigger the conduit, the better our relationship. And that's really communication. Communication is this just amazing process of, little bit by little bit by little bit. But what you're building is you're building a relationship and you're building trust. And it's the foundation of an incredible relationship, is that piece of it. So I think it goes both ways. I think people need to hear what they're doing right. and, I think about every day that they hear something that they're doing right is really important. We work with, a lot of really caring people, and when they don't hear how well they're doing, it's really hard. It's tough, and so they need to hear how well they're doing, which also builds that conduit. Getting compliments, receiving genuine compliments builds a conduit. And then when we go to have a tough conversation or courageous conversation, it's on top of that goodness. And so when we think about it, we think about 3-to-1. So people need a 3-to-1 ratio, 3 positives to every negative. And it's a bank, right? It's a bank of goodness where you're always building this incredible, what I call a conduit, but a bank account of positivity with each person, so that when you have to have a more challenging conversation, it's on top of this amazing relationship.
So really, I think the perspective we can change is that the negative feedback we get from whether it's patients or from our people, instead of seeing that as a setback, they can be a building block, really, and add to that conduit, right?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's that part of saying, oh, I get to have this conversation, instead of I don't want to have this conversation. It's like I get to have this conversation. And when I get to have this conversation, it's going to lead to something better.
That, and I think that also feels scary too. Just I'm thinking about courageous or critical conversations that I could have, and then honestly, thinking about them makes me like, oh my goodness, like I don't want to have it. But I think too, when I'm looking back on previous conversations that I've had like that, if I had gone in thinking, oh, I get to have this conversation, how much that changes and how more willing and an open mind I have to taking that feedback and being better versus I don't have this conversation. I think that automatically shuts you down to not being open to feedback and not changing and being better.
Yeah, that's awesome, Mo. I think that's the biggest thing. So, what I love about what you're saying is building or cultivating a mindset of openness, and not just to the good, but also to the part that's harder. And you're speaking to that part of us that wants to avoid, which is really it's really rampant, especially in dentistry. We're avoiders of those conversations. Like we do, it's like we'll go talk to the other team member about that team member, but we're not going to go have that conversation. So I love what you're saying, which is it's super hard for me. And when I think about it, I get jitters and I don't want to do it. Right? It's true. It's visceral. And so I love the idea of thinking back to times where you have had conversations and it has led to something better. And so that idea of I get to have this conversation and it's going to help me have something better. What you're talking about is a tiny habit. And, that's just, we build off of those little tiny habits. And so the reward for doing something difficult is I'm going to feel better ultimately, right? I'm going to feel better ultimately. And it helps us do those difficult things. So I love that. I love that you're bringing that up. And I think really it is this developing a heart for I can do this. I can do this. I've done it in the past. I can do this. This will lead to something better. This will lead to something better. Yeah, it's beautiful.
So you kind of touched upon this already, but I would love to kind of dig deeper and talking about how communication, effective good communication is integral to office productivity.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, it is, it shouldn't be so powerful. It really shouldn't be powerful, but it is the most powerful thing because I'll tell you, if you and I had a little something going on and we were working together and we show up to work, what's going to show up for us is that little bit of, right, that little static in our relationship. We won't say anything. We'll just step over it. We'll be working. But where is our mind going to be in our heart? Our mind and our heart is going to be in that little skirmish. She said that to me and I can't believe, whatever that obsession is that we have. And so to the degree that my mind is on that, it will take up my energy for being with that patient or being as productive as I can be with you the next time we interact. So it robs energy. And the truth is our energy is, it's there, and we're either putting our energy into that interaction or we're putting it into like getting our work done and being focused. And so the benefit to keeping communication clean and clear is that we can be clean and clear in our work. And now that's not just about being more productive for the practice, but it's like coming to work with an open heart, right? That is a way better. Like, I'm here to serve patients. I'm here to change lives. Let me go after it. I got this. And I don't have any static going on with my other team members. Right now, if somebody comes in and they like didn't say good morning, I just go, hey, hey, Mo, you didn't say good morning. What's up, man? Right? Like, I just handle it
Right.
instead of saying, she didn't say good morning to me. Did she say good morning to you? She could say good morning, because that's kind of what we do as human beings, right? We let go. So to the degree that stuff is going on, it's very difficult to be productive and to be really focused on our main goal, which is taking care of patients and changing their lives.
Okay, so let's say that I'm in a practice and I may have an issue with a fellow coworker, and I'm trying to work it out and communicate, and it's not really going anywhere. At what point do you say is it appropriate to involve another person to help resolve that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think I love it that you've actually tried. So that would be my first recommendation. When you have something go on, that you try to handle it with that person. You try to address it. You try to bring it up. And the really progressive practices, Mo, have communication experts come in and teach communication. I'm a systems person. I teach communication, but it's not my main zone. I do it because I want people to be better, right? I want their work to be better. But the first thing is, I would really recommend to all the doctor owners, get trained, have your team trained, make sure you have a system for communication. And with that, when the team member, so the first thing is the team member try to handle it with the team member. And if they can't, it still keeps rising its ugly head and it didn't help, then my recommendation is that the team leader, if they have a team leader, or the doctor or the office manager, so whoever, however the size, team leader, office manager, or the owner, that you say, can you facilitate a conversation? And so, we've talked about this, and then that's where that training comes in handy, because the facilitator really is there to say, do we have a win-win outcome, and what's the game plan to handle this? And so, and then when that doesn't, like, sometimes people just can't get along. They just can't get along. And so I think there are times where you've gone through all the steps, you've tried to handle it yourself, you've had the office manager facilitate a conversation. It still is persistent. I think then you get to make a choice. And I think the choice is, like, can I live with this and let it go and still be productive and just let that go? Or do I need to find something that's more satisfying to me? And what I think is always important for each of us is to know we have a choice. And we might not want to leave that job, but we do have a choice. We have a choice to let it go, or we have a choice to actually move on to find something that's more satisfactory. And it's really fascinating to me when I interview people, because the number of times that they say they had a skirmish with someone in the last office and they couldn't get along, it's pretty high. It's pretty high, and so I think the lesson I think is here is that we each get to learn how to have good communication skills to navigate our way so that we actually can be in the job of our dreams and handle people that aren't like us. Figure out how to communicate effectively. I think that's the big opportunity, is to be able to coexist get your job done, and be able to be effective with people who aren't like you.
Okay, so outside of communication, what are some other things an office can do to boost their productivity?
Yeah, that's of course my home zone, Mo. Thanks for asking that question. So we have the game changer system, which I talked about earlier, and that's really about preparing the day. And when we prepare the day, we really can be 2 to 3 times to 4 times more effective. So it's an amazing thing. I've had offices go in at half their goal amount, that was what their production, and come out far above their goal. So the game changer is an absolute system for increasing productivity. I think it's the easiest one, and requires the whole team, be trained and on board with that. And then the other thing I would say is time is our friend. Time management is the biggest thing that we have for productivity. So what I will say on that is the way that we set our schedule and the way that we book our schedule makes a difference. So having a productive schedule so that it's set up to be productive, not full, not just full, but productive, which means that we have some rocks in there. We have some rocks are highly productive procedures in dentistry. We have a mix. It's like a puzzle. We have so many rocks or productive procedures. We have some sand, which is medium-sized production, and then we have some filler, which we have to do just to make do. And so having that productive schedule and managing that productive schedule and making sure it's productively full, that combination with the game changer, like an office is unstoppable from productivity point of view.
Sometimes when I think of productivity, and maybe some of our listeners can relate, I think it's just going, 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 and boom, 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 boom. Would you say that scheduling out free time and just open space is part of having absolute productivity?
Yeah, so I think when I think go, 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 I think that's like working your tail off, right? Working your tail off. It's like, I'll just work harder. I'll just work harder. I'll just work harder. And that's the misnomer. And that's actually why we got to this plenty and 20. Like, no, 20%. What is the 20% you could do to be the most productive you can be? And so what I would say is managing your time is the most important thing, and making sure we're doing the most productive actions in each moment. So making sure we're complete about what we did in today's visit, making sure we have all the details complete and it's in the computer completely, and making sure that next visit is set up completely and it's all in the computer, including the narratives and why we're doing it, including making sure that we have a credit card on file so that we are getting paid for what we're doing. And that loop, making sure that loop and making sure that next visit goes into the schedule in the place it's supposed to be. So I want the most productive procedures in the place where they're supposed to be, and those lesser productive around it. So I would say, no, it's not just about working harder. It really is about working smarter and doing that 20% that makes the biggest difference, so that free time is free time, and we get to really enjoy the time that we're not working because our days are going so well.
So it sounds like it's related to the concept of quality over quantity, and that with the quality, we're doing things completely, seeing it to the end, making sure that everything is all, I's are all dotted, T's are all crossed, we're good to go, versus just, boom, 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 and maybe missing things and forgetting and someone slipping through the cracks, and then we have an upset patient.
That's it. I mean, that is it in a nutshell. Getting all the details correct and having things where they should be. And it's this crazy thing. Like, we're not just CPAs. CPAs, it's like all about getting it accurate. An accountant, it's all about getting it accurate. Well, our job is about getting it accurate, complete, and doing an awesome job from a customer service point of view. So we have these patients and these relationships to manage, and that, like, we want the details clear and clean, so our energy and our heart can go towards really taking care of that patient and making sure that they know they're number one. So it's this awesome balance, right?
Yeah. So outside of the systems that you use when you're helping these businesses, what other tools have you used to help organize your business and create productivity?
Yeah, I think automations are a fundamental way that an office can stay focused on the most important thing, which is being with the patient and doing what's next. Weave is a great example of an automation that is an incredible. Of course, you guys have the statistics. You probably know them better than I do, Mo. But Weave is, affords. It's this amazing communication tool, so it can take care of a lot of the communication, so that frees up the team when they're with the patient to do all these things that we're talking about. And so it really is that automation, and there are a number of automations. Weave is just a great example of automation. And the other thing I love about Weave is not only is it an automation for communication, but it is a relationship tool also. So, the name flashing up over the screen and understanding what is happening with that patient and making sure we're covering all those other loose ends. So it's just a beautiful technology for making sure we're complete, and actually taking a big load off of each team member, because it pops up all that information. They don't have to go diving in for all that information. I love it. That would be, I would say, automate everything you can automate. Use tools like Weave, and you probably know what those statistics are, but it's huge savings. It's a huge savings for each team member.
Yeah, I can say when I was an onboarder and I would help offices implement Weave, that was one of the biggest things when we'd go over the automated reminders, is that, of course, one, they're already sending out communication to patients for their appointments coming up. But the other great thing too is if they do have an integrative practice management software with Weave, that when the patient can just reply any positive reply that they're going to make to their appointment, it writes it back automatically and it makes the message as read. So even your front office staff doesn't have to go and check 50 messages that just say yes
Beautiful.
or I'll be there. Which is so great. And I know when I was an onboarder, that was one thing that my front desk ladies loved, because they were like, that takes so much time off my calendar. I don't have to worry about confirming or setting appointments.
It's like,
and it left more time for them to answer the phones. Yeah, answer the phones and help people at the front desk versus being, hold on 1 second and answer the phone and, checking this messages. Like, it just freed up. And I do know just from firsthand experience how much that was a loved feature for Weave.
Absolutely.
How much time that freed up for them to be productive in other areas, that they couldn't have automations.
Absolutely. Love it.
Listen, automations are the best. My dentist uses Weave, which I love, and it's honestly the greatest thing. It's my favorite. I'm like, yes, absolutely. I'll be there at my appointment. As a patient, it makes my life easier too. So
way better. Exactly.
Yes. Well, we are almost out of time, but we love to leave our listeners with a motivational tip, which is one page out of your playbook of success. So what would you give to our listeners as just their last little tip thing to remember to be successful?
Yeah, I would say use your huddle. First of all, if you're not doing a huddle, make sure you're doing a huddle, and really use your huddle to make sure you're communicating as a team about all those patients that are coming in and what's next for them, and put your focus on what's next.
Okay. Makes me think teamwork makes the dream work.
That's right. It does. Absolutely. Mo, what a pleasure to be with you here today.
Yes. Thank you so much for your time, Melinda. I had a blast. This has been great. And that is a wrap for today. Thanks to everyone listening. Don't forget to join the Happy Practice Playbook Facebook group, where we'll be discussing this topic more and sharing other helpful resources to help you keep your people happy. And as always, I'll be posting to get all of your tips and tricks as well. If you liked what you heard today, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on the next episode. We hope you'll join us next time. It's your girl, Mo Jones.